Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Pokemon FireRed. In the last part we start off the game and now we're back in Viridian City. Now, to continue on with plot and where I'm heading right now, I want to head north, but in a few moments we're actually going to be heading west for a bit of a side objective. And now for a cutscene that I think was skippable in the original Gen 1, but not so much here in Gen 3-1. Well now, I've had my coffee and that's what I need to get going. What is that red box you have? Ah, so you're working on your Pokedex. Well, then let me give you a word of advice. Whenever you catch a Pokemon, the Pokedex automatically updates to it. You don't know how to catch a Pokemon? I suppose I'd better show you then. This is one of the stranger things, I guess, about Gen 3's remake of Gen 1 here compared to the original game. It's a lot more tutorial heavy. Between the help Oak gives you during the first fight with your rival, this scene, and something I'm gonna try not to show off in this LP, the help system. If you press L and R at any given time, a help screen comes up that allows you to see like type matchups, what moves can do potentially what stats do what, so on and so forth. There, now tell me that wasn't education, was it not? And here, take this too. And this is the Teachy TV. This is another tutorial thing of sorts. It's a key item that, when you use it, brings up a couple of different options that lead into, I want to say, 1 to 5 minute long conversations between two guys, supposedly being a TV show, that help explain the mechanics a bit more. FireRed and Leaf Green are very much a very friendly first game in the series, just due to how much everything tries to help you along the way, which is something I can credit because I do like having these kind of options to you for a first-time player. For me, it's basically pointless at this point, though. And here's our first Pokemon gym, Viridian City. Sort of. Its doors are locked. We can't do anything here for a while. So with that, let's just head over here to the west. Well, first, actually, I'm going to come up here to get this hidden item behind this tree. We'll have a way to just destroy those trees later on, but for right now, we just got to walk around it. But with that, now let's head west to the second route you can technically encounter in the game that's not Route 2 to the north, Route 22. There are two reasons to come to this route. One of them is one of the 3 Pokemon we can encounter. You can encounter Rattatas here, there's also Spearows, which we'll see later on. But I am here in particular for the third Pokemon variety we can encounter here, Mankey. Mankey is our first fighting-type Pokemon. The fighting type is fairly physical in terms of its stats. I believe Mankey in particular has its highest stat is attack. But overall, the reason I'm grabbing this, and it's a similar reason to Pokemon Yellow even, if you chose Charmander just to make the first major boss fight be a little bit easier on your soul, I recommend grabbing it because fighting-type moves are going to be very useful for you. And I should note with this alone, compared to some people who try to catch every new Pokemon they encounter, my usual playstyle in Pokemon is I plan my team out ahead of time, and then I just catch those. And legendaries. That's it usually with me. There's going to be a bit more in this game than others in terms of catching, I admit to that, just due to a little bit of a side quest system that this one has, but we'll talk more about that when that becomes relevant. Mankey, light and agile on its feet, and I didn't even read that at all. Oh well. This is Zoe. Since the latter half of my team isn't going to be available to the latter half of the game even, she's going to be on the team for a while. Also, if you ever see a glow transition like that, that's me going to use the nearby Pokemon Center. Oh, hey. Hey, Kyle. You're off to the Pokemon League? Forget about it. You probably don't have any badges, do you? The guard won't let you through without them. By the way, did your Pokemon get any stronger? This is a completely optional fight against your rival. He's only added 1 new Pokemon to his team, and it's Pidgey. This one has, in particular, the Gust move, which is, I think, technically the first flying-type move you might see at this point in the game. It has Sand Attack, which is probably the most dangerous thing about it, though, because that will lower your accuracy. And while I don't care too much myself for using stat-altering moves, unless it's a side effect, having your accuracy lowered, especially prior to, like, maybe Gen 5, really sucked, because luck was just often against you. And this is also the reason I grabbed Zoe, because Squirtle, Blue Squirtle at this point, has Bubble, which is a Water-type move. If you just have a Charmander at this point, or rather any of your starters alone, you're going to have a rough time due to the fact they usually have their type move, which means not only do they get same type attack bonus, but it's also the type that's you're weak against, so you're probably going to have a bit of a rough time. If you have to Pyrrhic Victory it, it is worth just having a second Pokemon for that fact alone. Something I forget if this game has, though, and I don't think it does, is in the original Gen 1, the rival battles all culminated, or at least in Yellow, in one of your rival's Pokemon changing its form. In Yellow in particular, Blue would later on get an Eevee that's, depending on which battles you won and lost, would evolve into one of the Gen 3 evolutions. Not so much here, though, from memory, at least. I think that's right. Ultimately, though, this fight is still easy. I mean, it's an early game one. You're just going to want to have either some potions on hand in case you get low, or if you get critical hit, for that matter, and bring a second Pokemon along just for the sake of it. Ah, you just lucked out. I heard the Pokemon League's crawling with tough trainers. I have to figure out how to get past them. You should quit dawdling and get a move on. Okay. I know there's a whole conversation to be had about nowadays Pokemon and friendly rivals versus the old dickish ones like Blue. Honestly, I prefer the former myself, but that's just because there's nothing to Blue beyond the fact he's kind of a dick. With that, we can head on north to Route 2 and actually continue our journey proper. Route 2 does have 2 new Pokemon, but I'm going to be talking about them in the next area after this anyway. The notable thing is that it has one of my favorite route themes in the game. FireRed Leaf Green soundtrack overall is really good, because it's just Gen 1 again, and that had great music to begin with. I don't like some of the remixes, though, because I think they lean a bit too hard on that very samey-sounding guitar, as you can hear in the main battle theme. A very similar problem to Mega Man X3, now that I think about it. Huh. Moving on, though, time for our first sort of dungeon. This is Viridian Forest. I love this song. In fact, weird little fact about me. I used to get frequent headaches and even some stomach aches when I was really young. And even though you're supposed to take, like, slow breaths when you're trying to rest, for some reason, me breathing to the beat of this song helped, and I don't know why. The big thing with Viridian Forest is that there are bug types all over the place, such as Weedle. This is a poison bug type, which means it's very weak to fire. It's not too spectacular. The big thing is this and its partner Pokemon you can also encounter in this forest, Caterpie, are both very good early game Pokemon because they reach their final evolution by like level 12, I believe, which is absurdly early. And their next, even if the hard part is, though, you have to go through the middle stages, Metapod and Kakuna. Metapod, I believe, is just a bug type, and it's only going to really often have Silk Shot, which is just a move that lowers your speed. They usually only, if they don't have that, they usually just use Harden, which ups their defense. The big thing is their third evolutions are generally good, though if I had to pick, go for Caterpie over Weedle, just because Butterfree, I think, is much better than Beedrill. And here I'm saying because I don't want to lose all my Pokeballs, because the second main member of my team is available here for the first time in this forest. It's a 5% encounter chance, but I generally find myself having good luck up here, even though it's completely superstitious, because eventually you can run into Pikachu, everyone's favorite mascot. The big thing with this is Gen 1 doesn't have many good electric types. The Pikachu line is probably the best one, and since I usually like having an electric type on my team, I'm going for it. And now I'm paralyzed. Paralysis in Pokemon, I believe, is a 50% chance that you're not going to be able to take your turn, but additionally, it also lowers your speed essentially to 0, so you're guaranteed to go second. Unless you use a move like Quick Attack, which has priority. I believe. I actually seldom have Quick Attack on a Pokemon for too long. Pikachu. It has small electric sacs on both its cheeks. If threatened, it looses electric energy on the world. And I'm naming this after my friend of many years. Hey, Kenny. Getting a Pikachu here, though, can be kind of tedious just due to that 5% encounter chance. Sometimes it's taking me 10 minutes. Other times it's taking me over an hour. Which makes this playthrough very funny to me for a reason we'll go over in a few moments. I do want to have Zoe out in the front, though, because the main method of getting experience points early on a Pokemon game for something that's relatively weaker is just having it first in the first slot of your party and then trading out for another one. Because any Pokemon who participate in battle get experience points, although I believe it splits dependent on the amount you've used. The best way to compare it is Final Fantasy X, honestly. And I want to make sure Zoe gets a very particular move before a major boss fight next part. Also, that's Caterpie. It's non-poisonous Weedle, doesn't even have poison attacks. It's honestly pretty simple. The big thing you might want to do in your first playthrough, if you have enough money, is go buy some antidotes, because that just allows you to easily avoid getting poisoned for too long. Also, I got the move I wanted actually on the way to that Pokemon Center trip there, Low Kick, which inflicts damage relative to the weight of the opponent Pokemon. And one of the major boss fights Pokemon coming up is pretty heavy. Not like top 10, but for this point in the game. Very often, though, because as we see here, the items in this game are Pokeballs, and you pick them up, you find it. There are going to be hidden items, and there's even a couple in this very area. More often than not, you can tell if it's on the grass, though, just based off a hidden mark. Hey, you have Pokemon! Come on, let's battle them! Whenever you run into a person's sight, you must battle them in the Pokemon series. However, I'm going to take this opportunity to discuss how I'm handling trainer battles for this series. Moving forward, the only fights we're seeing at normal speed are major fights. Gym leaders, otherwise boss fights, rival battles, end of area fights as well if I consider it close enough to be a boss fight. Required battles that aren't those are going to be sped up to usually an extent that I'll get the battle below 30 seconds. Optional fights are going to be completely cut out. However, the only exception to any of that is if a new Pokemon shows up. In the case it's being sped up and a new Pokemon shows up, it'll go back to normal speed, and if a no Pokemon shows up in a battle I'm otherwise cutting out, I'll cut to that new Pokemon. I will discuss the teams of any given fight, at least in what they have, but for the most part, these are going to be a lot of the same Pokemon over and over and over again. Especially once you realize how the archetypes of trainers work. For instance, bug catchers, get this, they use a lot of bugs, and in Gen 1 in particular, there's not a lot of bugs. There's the Caterpie line, the Weedle line, I think one other later down the road, and that's it from my memory. I don't think I'm missing any. Wait, no, there's another one. Maybe another two. But at this point in the game, you're mostly going to be seeing Caterpie and Weedle lines. The reason I'm using that particular system for the battles is just to make sure this LP doesn't go on forever. Because Pokemon is a bit different compared to other RPGs I've done. Especially considering usually when I do an RPG, it's usually with Kenny, for instance, like Final Fantasy. This is mostly just me making sure I don't do what I think other Pokemon LPs do to an extent, I guess. Because the problem ooh, that's poison, by the way. Poison, you take damage every couple of steps. And another one, really. Poison can also kill you out of battle, though. So make sure, in case you have someone who's poisoned, it's the last Pokemon in your team, use an antidote on that immediately. Poison is arguably at its worst here, though, just because early on in the game especially, you don't take much damage. For instance, in this fight against Pokemon Bug Trainer Doug, he used the Kakuna. It's the Weedle equivalent of Metapod. It can have Poison Sting if you're not careful. Otherwise, though, Fire takes it out pretty well. Another reason I'm cutting out as many battles as I can, essentially, comes down to a bit of a trapping that I think most Pokemon LPs come into, and why I think this series is actually better suited to live commentary compared to my usual style. And that's that, just given how much time there can be between battles and major plot events, it's a perfect series to just, like, ramble on, talk about what you want to talk about, so on and so forth. And while I love doing that, I also want to keep myself relatively on topic. I believe that was Bug Catcher Anthony, by the way, who has a two Caterpies, actually. I think a level 7 and a level 8 or 9? Sounds right. I believe that was Charlie, who has a Metapod, Caterpie, and a Metapod. Nothing too special, again. You'll get tired of seeing a lot of the same Pokemon very much here. Oh, really? A third one? I swear I've never had this much luck with a Pikachu before. It's kind of ridiculous, but I'm glad it happened on screen, because there's always those rumors as a kid where you hear people say, oh, well, I had like 7 of these show up, but like seeing it actually happen is something else. Also notable, whenever I speed up a battle that's required, like Bug Trainer Sammy here, who only has this Weedle, by the way, I will be playing music over it. This in particular is the GBA / I think PlayStation 1 version of Final Fantasy 1's battle theme. And their Blaze Learn Metal Claw, which makes the Mankey not as required as it was in the original Gen 1, because in the original Gen 1, that move didn't exist because the Steel-type move, which was introduced in Gen 2. The next major boss is Rock-type, and that's very effective against fire, especially any ground attacks they have as well. So having a Steel-type move, which is effective against them, balances out a little bit. Also, this lady is bringing up the evolution cancel technique. When a Pokemon does eventually evolve under whatever circumstances it might require, you can just press the B button to cancel it out. Either way, with that, and we're about to end this off here, but I should note that patch of grass there is very important because in between parts, I'm going to be grinding Kenny and Zoe up to level 10 for 2 reasons mainly. One, so I can have their stats a bit better for the next major boss fight, but also so they can catch up a bit with Blaze. I'm trying not to grind too much in this LP, but for one of the Pokemon I want on my team, it's going to be kind of inevitable, but I will be mentioning whenever it does happen. With that, though, I'll see you guys in part 3 when we head after our first major boss fight. See you guys then.